TJ, yeah. Straight up, let's go. Welcome to Straight Up TJAY. Tap in, sit back, press replay. Been locked in with the Saints on a weekday. Now we talking every sport, every big play. Years on the grind, now we level up the view. From the dome to the world, get a better look at you. No script.
Hey, what's going on? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, and welcome to another edition of the Straight Up TJAY Podcast. I really do appreciate your time. Shouts out to you if you're checking out this podcast. I really do appreciate it. And we have a few topics that we're going to be discussing. Is a hit piece out on Alvin Kamara. And we're also going to be talking about Terrion Arnold, the cornerback from the Detroit Lions, and some deep trouble. We'll get into that. But of course, if you like the Straight Up TJAY Podcast, hit the like and subscribe button to help the channel grow. I would really appreciate that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started. I ain't trying to waste nobody time. Let's go ahead and get into a story that has been making its round around the Saints fan world, this Who Dat Nation land. And I'm talking about the most recent article from longtime sports columnist of the New Orleans Saints, Mr. Jeff Duncan. Jeff Duncan has been writing for the New Orleans Saints, covering the New Orleans Saints for a very long time. I think I was probably in high school around the time Jeff Duncan first started out covering the New Orleans Saints. People have their reservations about Jeff Duncan and some of the things that he says in regards to the New Orleans Saints. Some people feel as if Jeff Duncan is a little bit of a plant, so to speak, right? Working within the industry in order to get the fans on the side of the organization and basically turning on the players. We've heard stories in the past, pertaining to Michael Thomas, and Michael Thomas has some choice words about Jeff Duncan, and now again, Jeff Duncan writes an article about a very popular New Orleans Saint player, running back Alvin Kamara, and we're going to be reading a little bit of the article, and it is on the New Orleans Advocate website, or NOLA.com. It's the most recent article that has come out, and the title of it is "Someone Has to Say It." It's time for the Saints and Alvin Kamara to part ways. And it didn't take long for this particular article to be, make its rounds on social media. And, a lot of people are very upset at this article. And I'm going to go ahead and read it, and you can judge for yourself. All right. Here's what it says. It says, "They say all things must come to an end. The Beatles broke up. Seinfeld eventually became reruns, and the once idyllic marriage of Tom Brady and Giselle ran its course. And it's not to be shocking if something similar happens to Alvin Kamara and the New Orleans Saints. In fact, you can argue that parting ways might be in the best interest of the star running back and the team that drafted him 9 years ago. Through a release or trade, Kamara would get a chance to end his stellar career by chasing a ring with a Super Bowl contender and finding a larger role on the field. With Kamara out of the picture, the Saints could hand the backfield keys to Travis Etienne and give more snaps to their stable young reserve backs Devin Neal, Kendre Miller, and Archie Estime." All right, we're going to stop right there. We're going to get into that. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it up on the screen so you all can see it. Once again, thank you for being here. Ask that you hit the like button. If you're just joining us, we're taking a look at Jeff Duncan, Saints reporter, most recent article on NOLA.com pertaining to Alvin Kamara. All right, but let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this, man. Let's go ahead and break down just that first few sentences there. If you take a look, he basically talks about, all things must come to an end, right? Things that have been synonymous, with our lives. He talked about Seinfeld. I'm a big Seinfeld guy, believe it or not. I've watched every episode of Seinfeld. I thought it was one of the funniest shows on television. He talked about the Beatles. That's way before my time. But he is basically saying, like, as much as we enjoy these moments, right? All things must come to an end. And, Alvin Kamara being with the New Orleans Saints, he feels as if it has ran its course. But here's why I have an issue with some of the things that Jeff Duncan is saying. He's saying that it's in the best interest of Alvin Kamara to go and, chase after a championship. But we know that Alvin Kamara isn't built like that. I've had several episodes where I've said this on countless occasions. Alvin Kamara isn't the type of guy that just chases personal accolades. He's a guy that, to me, wouldn't have an issue taking a back seat to Travis Etienne if he feels the Saints are trying to go in a different direction. I don't think that he would have an issue with that at all. He just doesn't strike me as a selfish individual. Just seems like, football is what he does, is not who he is. Some football players, it would probably make them upset or frustrate them to a point where they're not seeing as much action as they once did. But Alvin just strikes me as a guy that is just about doing what is best for the team. So I don't think that Alvin is wired like that, where he's trying to chase rings and trying to get after championships. I just don't think that, that's not in his DNA. Alvin Kamara a couple of years ago was 50 yards shy of his first 1,000-yard season. I've said this before, and he could have played in the final game of the season. He decided not to. I mean, it just wasn't that important to him. What's important to him is trying to do what is best for the team. So I don't think that would be an issue. Now, this is what I'm talking about right here. And another thing, when he's talking about this stable, young reserve backs that they have on his team, you think about Devin Neal, you think about Kendre Miller and Archer Estime. Archer Estime ran the ball pretty well last season, had a really good yards per carry, took advantage of his opportunities. But when it comes to Devin Neal and Kendre Miller, these guys can't stay healthy, right? I mean, you could say Alvin can't stay healthy either, but if you're going to make a case that these guys need to be the ones to step up, at least have some guys that have shown you that they have the durability to be able to do what Alvin Kamara has done. Now, people would say that Alvin Kamara only finished the entire season, maybe one time in his career, but Alvin has done enough to a point where he has missed time, and he makes you miss him because you know what he's capable of when he's on the field. You've seen little spurts of Kendre Miller. You've seen little spurts of Devin Neal, but not to a point where you look at these guys as mainstays with the team. They're still trying to establish themselves as running backs in the National Football League. Alvin Kamara has already done that. So there's that. All right, let's go ahead and move on. I'll go ahead and stroll down a little bit more. Says it might not be the ending either side envisioned 2 years ago when Kamara signed a 2-year, $24.5 million contract extension. But there are certain worse ways for a relationship to end. I realize this way may not be popular opinion, but Kamara, after all, is the leading rusher in Saints history and one of the most popular players to wear the black and gold. He has been voted a team captain twice by his peers and inspired a generation of New Orleans kids. His jersey, number 41, is ubiquitous at Saints games, at Saints home games. But as Demario Davis, another Saints legend, noted earlier this year, the good times only roll for so long, and sometimes it's best to move on. That time feels like it has come for Kamara and the Saints, just as it did for so many other NFL partnerships. Brady and the Patriots, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, Peyton Manning and the Colts. So basically saying that Alvin Kamara is a fan favorite, just like Tom Brady was with the Patriots and Aaron Rodgers was with the Packers and Peyton Manning with the Colts. Look, I get all that, and I understand that, that even the greatest players of all time played on other teams. Like my favorite quarterback back in the day was Joe Montana, right? Joe Montana, I mean, he is synonymous with 49er football. And of course, towards the end of his year, 49ers wanted to the end of Joe Montana's career. He wanted to continue to play. The 49ers wanted Steve Young to be the quarterback. So they end up moving on from Joe Montana. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs. It looked weird looking at him in the number 19 jersey, But look, I just think that, yes, players are going to leave, right? And just thinking that a player is just going to be with one franchise for the rest of their career is, it's not always going to be that way. I mean, Cam Jordan has been with the Saints his entire career. That's the reason why it's such a amazing feat, because you don't see guys last that long in NFL, let alone playing on the same team. But the reality is Alvin Kamara still has something of value. He still is one of the best running backs in the room. He's still a top running back on the Saints team. And to move off of him, I just don't think that that's ideal. Like, you could talk about, the Brady and the Patriots. I just think that it was when Belichick just wanted something different. He wanted to move on. We know about him wanting to roll with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? We know that Jimmy Garoppolo was supposed to be the succession plan to Tom Brady. And, Tom Brady went upstairs, talked to Robert Kraft, and kind of finessed his way to about 2 or 3 more years. We know about that. But when it comes to Alvin Kamara, who is going to beat Alvin Kamara out to a point where you just look at him and say, well, yeah, I think it's time for Alvin to move on? I haven't seen that yet. I've seen some running backs in the running back room of the Saints with some talent, but not to a point where I'm just looking at it like, man, you know what? This guy needs to replace Alvin Kamara, because I haven't seen it yet. Now, if, these guys, play really well this season, the light starts to come on, and, maybe you can have that conversation next year, and it'll be a little bit more easier to have, because Alvin Kamara is still under contract, but it's more of a phantom year. So at the end of the day, what are you actually, gaining from getting rid of Alvin Kamara? I mean, like I said, regardless, this would be his last season in New Orleans anyway. So it's probably best to see what you actually have in this running back room, build some of these young guys up. Then if you decide to move on from Alvin Kamara in 2027, you'll have somebody that can be able to fill in that void and be a 1-2 punch with Travis Etienne. All right, we're going to stop right there. Let me read some of your comments, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But let's go ahead and read some of your comments. Thank you all for being here. It says, after hearing this, I'm thinking of parting ways with Nola YouTube channel. I don't know. No, Jared. No, don't do that, man. Don't do that. Don't do that, man. Because number one, I have nothing but respect for those beat writers, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is not easy being a beat writer. It's not easy. Like, sometimes you're going to do things and say things that are not going to, be something that people are going to like. Like, you got to basically just give your opinion based on, the things that are, presented to you. But I'm not going to hold Luke Johnson accountable for that. I don't feel like anybody should hold my guy Rod Walker responsible for that. Matthew Parrish, like, those guys, they do a really good job, man. And there's some really good people, man. I've met Luke Johnson a few times. Great person. Rod Walker, really good person. I met Matthew Parrish out in Indianapolis for the combine. Good dude. Like, I just think that these guys are passionate with what they do. I don't think you need to hold everybody accountable, based on the fact that maybe you don't like what Jeff Duncan is saying. Now, I will say this. I do have a problem with individuals, and I see this a lot, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I don't think I ever end up, just being a reporter, like, per se, like everybody else is because I just can't do it, man. I don't think that. I think that if you're a reporter, you're supposed to serve the people, right? You're supposed to get the information, bring it back to the people, because you are the middleman, right? You are the middleman between what's going on in the organization and the pulse of the people, right? You get that information, and you're allowed access to things that most fans and most people aren't privy to. And I just think that if you are basically writing stories or writing articles to maintain positions, and I've seen this on countless occasions where people would, I guess, like, embellish stories that's supposed to be like really, really serious, and they'll just make it seem like it ain't a big deal or not report it anyway, right? Because they don't want to lose their position. They don't want to lose their access. I get it. You got to play the game sometimes, but where do you draw the line? And I don't feel like you should write articles, to do the bidding of organizations, right? Because it's just a fact. Like, I'm sorry, folks. It's just a fact. Most fans of teams, they will side with the organization before they side with a player. We see this all the time when it comes to contract talk. When a player is holding out, trying to get his bread, trying to maximize his portfolio, so to speak, fans start to talk about, well, why they ain't at practice? Why ain't they at training camp? Oh, they selfish, right? They start siding with the organization, and they start to look at the player sideways. Oh, man, something wrong with him. But when that player's on the field catching touchdowns or getting sacks or getting interceptions, they're the best thing since sliced toast bread. So, yeah, I do feel like, most fans in most cases side with the organization, but I don't feel like you need to write hit pieces in order to make fans upset about a player because it basically serves your interest. But I don't think anybody should be, turning off, the NOLA podcast, because those guys do a good job. That's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. Let's see, hit piece, Mickey Loomis involved. Look, I think I look at it two ways, okay? I will say this. If you listen to Jeff Duncan, when it comes to like some of the things that he say, he is critical of the organization, right? I think, honestly, he's a little bit too, Sean Payton happy for me. I think that he sides more with Sean Payton more so than the organization. You can tell, like, he still kind of just talks about it. He still has a relationship with Sean Payton to a point where he actually travels up to Denver. But I will say that he does question the organization. But at the same time, it's like, I look at it like he says certain things to me at times. It's like people would look at it as if he is siding with the organization and he basically is like trying to turn the players' heel, so to speak, right? But I don't know, man. I think that, he does question the organization from time to time, but some of those articles can be interpreted sometimes as a little bit hit piecey, if you will. I got the weekend to think about it. Should I stay on New Orleans Saints or NOLA channel? Man, I think, man, you should stay on the channel. He's basically saying he's an old guy that we need to move on from because he has no value with us no more. Jeff needs to be drug tested. Look, this is the problem that I have with this particular, article. Everybody knows that the New Orleans Saints, for the most part, for the last 4 to 5 years, they have not utilized Alvin Kamara the way that Sean Payton utilized Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara was averaging about 88 catches a year, right? Over 1,100 all-purpose yards. I mean, every single year when Sean Payton was his coach. And we seen when Sean Payton left and Dennis Allen came along and Pete Carmichael was calling plays, his arsenal, right? It just got watered down. It got diluted. We didn't see wheel routes anymore. We didn't see screen passes anymore. We didn't see Alvin Kamara like plays designed for him to make plays in space. It was more so they were utilizing Alvin Kamara like your conventional run-of-the-mill running back. And then on top of that, the same thing that Jeff Duncan is talking about, the Saints actually have, which is a stable of running backs. They didn't have that when Alvin Kamara was in his physical prime. When Mark Ingram left and went to Baltimore, right, and bounced around between the Texans, Alvin Kamara was the one-man show. Like, they'll bring back Latavius Murray or something like that. They'll activate him for a game or two. But there was no stability. There wasn't that backup guy that can come in, that could be that change of pace back that you can count on consistently running the football with Alvin Kamara. It was the Alvin Kamara show. And they were using him like he was a 220-pound bruising back. And that's just not his game. I mean, Alvin is capable of doing that, but his bread is buttered when he is making plays in space. And the New Orleans Saints have not done Alvin Kamara any favors. So much so that Jeff Duncan feels, like he's well within his rights to write an article like this. But if we have to look at the big picture, and the big picture is the Saints weren't utilizing Alvin Kamara correctly. You can make an argument that the Saints are one of the reasons why Alvin Kamara has consistently been hurt and missed time, because they haven't really addressed the offensive line, right? Most of the time when he's getting the ball, he's getting smacked in the face by the time the exchange takes place. And then, like I said, there's nobody that was able to be that compliment to him. So if he is run down, it's because the organization hasn't done what they need to do in order to keep him healthy enough by bringing somebody in that can be able to alleviate some of the pressure off of him, where he doesn't have to be Earl Campbell 2.0 in a 210, 211-pound body. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Strolling down. Says TJ, people put they would do and what they think a player should do or be motivated by. And then they project that on these guys and create false narratives that can derail careers. Look, I just think I just put it like this. Like, for the most part, people are saying, on social media, what I've seen and the people that I've talked to, ain't nobody like really buying what Jeff Duncan is selling. And it's not the fact that people are looking at it from a fan's perspective, because that's what they'll say. And that's kind of offensive in a way, right? I do feel like people have an emotional connection with players, right? But at the same time, there are those, but there are a strong majority of fans that understand football just as much as the people that are writing about it, just as much as the people that, that are on the sidelines sometimes. Like, people invest a lot of time in understanding football. And even most fans, you may not understand what certain personnels are, whatever, 10, 11, 12 personnel. I don't know what that 13. You don't know what that means for the most part, but you know what good execution looks like. Like, if a play has been working or not, but I just have a problem when, you try to get fans to turn on these players, right? Oh, this guy right here, he's selfish. This is the reason why he's not getting a contract. Well, it's amazing to me how a person's selfish behavior always seems to come up when it's time to get the bread. But when this man was making, a couple dollars, all of a sudden, I can tolerate that. But now it's time to get the big bucks. And now all of a sudden, he a locker room cancer and he fighting everybody. Well, was he fighting everybody in his second year? Or was he just started fighting people when his contract, when he was up for a contract extension? So, yeah, I do think that there are hit pieces that do come out against players. And yes, they do. That does affect players. Now, I tell people this all the time. The competitive nature of the NFL doesn't just start on Sundays. I mean, it's all through the offseason. There are teams that will put stories out about players where it will make that player unattractive to other teams, that would make them be able to go to the table and negotiate a deal with a player. Maybe they want to lowball a player. Maybe they want to keep that player around and don't want to have a market too big. There are competitive things that go on from a front office standpoint as well. It's not just about X's and O's on Sunday either. So I do understand that. But at the same time, you cannot just go out here and just, put that type of energy in the air, because people believe you, especially if you've been doing it as long as some of these reporters have been doing it. People take your word as gospel. And I think some of them understand that, and they use that typewriter, they use that keyboard in order to inflict that power into the atmosphere to show people, okay, man, I can make you and I can break you. I think those guys, but Jeff Duncan reminds me of Rashawn 1976. Y'all know who that person is. Actually, I'm familiar. I think I'm familiar with that tag, but not to a point where you're referring to. Don't get me wrong, TJ, they do good. It's Jeff Duncan that rubs the wrong way. I just think that a lot of people, from what I have seen, have an axe to grind with Jeff Duncan. But at the same time, you got to look at it, man. Like, that he writes these stories and stuff like that. Like I said, it's going to be time. It's times where I agree with some of the things that he says, and it's times where I'm like, I don't know about all that, bro. I don't know about all that. Let's see, TJ. You can't use a guy outside his skill set, then say he washed or bust when he doesn't produce in a role you put him in. Yeah, I agree. I don't know, man. It's like I say it all the time. Like, my 7-year-old son. My 7-year-old son Paxton, right? So, let's just say, for example, I tell him, to shoot a NBA 3-point shot. And I just give him the ball. Okay, have at it, kid. And he shoots the ball and it don't hit the rim at all. Oh man, what you doing, man? You can't hit the rim? Well, I mean, this like 30 feet out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I expect the 7-year-old to pull up from 3 and consistently hit Steph Curry style jump shots or 3-point shots. Like that's asking, that's a tall ask, right? Like, like, why should I get mad about something like that? Like, I know for a fact that that's not in his wheelhouse right now. Maybe one day, right, when he's about as tall as me, maybe he would have a jump shot or something. I ain't saying I got a jump shot, but y'all get what I'm saying, having a grown man body. But all I'm saying is, it's like, you can't ask a guy to be the greatest thing since sliced toast bread, and you are not putting him in the best position to succeed. It just doesn't make any sense. And then turn around and say, well, he's not what he used to be. Well, he probably would be what he used to be if you actually utilize him the way that you once did. But since you don't use him the way that you once did, here we are. And we can't just have this conversation like the guys watch, because, like I said, the Saints have not done Alvin Kamara any favors when it comes to this offensive line. When it comes to the offensive line, if it hasn't been bad luck, right, unfortunate situations, I mean, a bad play. I mean, it's just all been wrapped up into one. Bad offensive line execution. Your key players can't stay healthy. And then you're running your 210, 11-pound running back into the middle of the defense. I mean, in the middle of the A-gap, where you struggle the most at the guard position. Like, who is going to succeed with that? So I just think that you got to be realistic about it. Is Alvin Kamara the running back that he once was? Probably not. But to say that Alvin Kamara can be useful to you if you fix that offensive line and give him space where he can actually make plays, I mean, I'll let y'all figure that out. Absolutely. Fans can have things both ways. Yeah, man, let's see. Facts are we need youth and should have kicked the can when Sean Payton took off and done the rebuild right after Sun bounced. Look, I agree with what you're saying. Like, two things can be true here, Albert. I agree with what you're saying. And I've said this before. So when it comes to the Saints, they needed to get younger. I think we all felt that way. I've said this before, and I apologize for people that watched this show and heard me say this over and over and over again. The New Orleans Saints have a issue with letting guys go, and that has been a downfall for the last 3 to 4 seasons. Finally, they're starting to say goodbye to these mainstays and these cornerstone players who have been around the team and have been, conjoined with the success of the team when they were at their height. But it's time to move on, and it's time to get younger. But at the same time, yes, it is time to get younger, but let's just be realistic about this. You can't just get young for the simple fact of just getting young. You want young, talented players. I'm going to say that again. You want young, talented players. You don't just want a guy on your team just because they're 23 years old. You don't want a guy on your team just because they're 22. Can they play? Can they replace the person the player that may be on their way out? Can they fill that void? Because if they can't, guess what? They may be young, but they still not going to be able to produce the way that you need them to produce. And when I'm looking at some of these young running backs, they have talent, they have ability, they have skill. But are their skills on the level of an Alvin Kamara? No, it is not. No, it is not, folks. That has been the downfall of Alvin Kamara, because there has not been a young, talented running back that can complement him. It has been his show because nobody has been good enough to consistently be on the field with Alvin Kamara. You have Travis Etienne, who you signed in the offseason. You know that he's talented. But I'm not saying Kendre Miller doesn't have talent. He does. I'm not saying Devin Neal doesn't have talent. He does. Archie Estime, I'm not saying that he doesn't. He does. But none of those guys are better than Alvin Kamara. And that's a fact. You're not going to tell me if Alvin Kamara can stay healthy an entire season that Devin Neal will play running back better than him, Kendre Miller would play better running back than him. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. Now, this is what I'm saying. It's not like you're tied to Alvin Kamara for 4 or 5 more years. We're talking about 1 more year. Now, you can have an argument. I don't want to pay $10.5 million for a guy that's not going to be our feature back, whatever. But that's the contract that you gave him. You can't, you can't get upset that you wait, I don't even think has it been a full year since Alvin Kamara got that contract extension? I don't even think so. So you just gave him that contract extension. Now all of a sudden you got buyer's remorse, and now you want, what do you want? Well, all I'm saying is he's going to be there 1 more year. So even if, you don't want Alvin Kamara in 2027, I mean, you have a choice not to have him. So at least for a fact you have a guy that is capable of making things happen if something was to happen to HN. At this point, the way they treat Alvin, I'd rather see him go elsewhere and do work and prove people wrong. Yeah, man, I don't think you should do that to your all-time leading rusher, man, a Saints legend. I just don't. TJ, you hit the bullseye when you say fans will side with the organization rather than the player in most cases. Look at the Brandon Ayuk situation. Exactly. Everybody just chunk it up oh, man, this guy's a head case, right? Oh, man, get this dude up out of here, right? But nobody really understands what goes on behind the scenes or what type of pressures these players are under in order for them to be able to play on the field. And the thing about it is we have a tendency of when players, come out and have gripes and complaints about the organization, we just kind of turn our nose up at the player. Get out of here, millionaire boy. Oh, man, cry into your Posturepedic pillow, right? Cry into your shirt or mattress. We started looking at these guys and we okay, man, you a millionaire. You making more money than we can even think about. What do you have to complain about? But we don't understand what's going on behind the scenes and what these guys are going through in order to be on the field. We don't know what these organizations are doing, right? And I think there's 2 sides to every story. But it just seems to me if a player is complaining about their situation, then he automatically gets labeled. I don't think that guys, for the most part, are just coming out here and just trying to create or commit career sabotage. There it is, commit career sabotage. I don't feel like that's the case. Well, in some cases it is. I don't know. Some of them are true head cases, but for the most part, sometimes these guys are crying out and they have these gripes, and at the end of the day, nobody really ever listens to them. They basically just look at them man, what are you complaining about? Or, they'll be oh, man, he a cancer. I'm glad he ain't in my locker room. PJ Williams works at PetSmart. What they have to do with anything? He's actually the DB coach at Florida State. Very funny, Lee. Says Loomis tried to rebuild our team from the 99-cent store rather than pay the right players. Yep, absolutely, man. Jared said, congrats on 13,000 subscribers, TJ. I appreciate that, man. And hopefully we can get that Sleeper Saints podcast. We can get that to 13,000 plus, man. The Sleeper Saints podcast. Look, man, we finally, for the first time, got our first 1,000 viewed video, man. The most recent video that was put out for the Sleeper Saints podcast. If you don't know, the Sleeper Saints podcast is a podcast that I do weekly. Shouts out to Sleeper. If you have not checked out any episodes, make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Help the channel to grow. The Sleeper Saints podcast. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put it up in the link inside of the comments, so you all can be able to check it out and check out the Sleeper Saints podcast and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. So make sure that you do that, man. I'm really counting on you all to follow that page, help that channel to grow. Work really hard to try to get this channel up, and try to get it to a point where people can be able to check it out. And we definitely gonna be doing episodes throughout the season, man. So you don't want to miss anything. We do shorts, a few shorts each week. So make sure you subscribe to the Sleeper Saints podcast channel. All right. I'm not going to read the entire article with Jeff Duncan, but I think you all get the point. If you want to finish it up, you can go to NOLA.com and you can read the rest of what he has to say. All right. But, a lot of people think that Jeff Duncan is, putting hit pieces out on players and, causing people to feel as if players are committing career suicide, right? But there's one player in particular I don't think anybody can argue that is a possibility, and I'm referring to the Detroit Lions cornerback Terrion Arnold. Now, I don't know what the heck is going on. I don't know what the problem is, but this is just absolutely insane. Like, when I first saw this story, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke. I thought like somebody, you really don't know what to trust and what you can and can't trust on social media, what's on these websites. People be just trying to do things to troll, trying to chase clout. So you don't know, right? So when I first saw it, I'm like, man, that just don't make no sense because, I check out, Terrion Arnold. I think he has a podcast, if I'm not mistaken, with Pat Surtain Jr. And, I'm like, okay, guy, came out with a lot of fanfare out of Alabama, and he was supposed to be a really good cornerback, had a few little setbacks with injuries, and I'm like, okay. But as I learned the story was true, I just couldn't believe it, man. I just couldn't believe it. Now, if you did not hear what happened with Terrion Arnold, here's what we know as of right now, okay? Terrion Arnold was arrested and charged in Florida in connection with an alleged February 2026 kidnapping and armed robbery case in Tampa. Now, he is not convicted of anything, and his attorney representatives are denying the allegations. They are emphatically denying these charges. They like, man, my client didn't do it, right? They said that the current court reports charges new court coverage says Arnold was arraigned on 3 counts of armed robbery, 3 counts of kidnapping, 1 count of conspiracy to commit armed robbery, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit kidnapping. All right, so let's go ahead and tell y'all what happened. All right, so Tampa police said that the case stems from something that happened on February 4th. It was an incident where 3 late teen males, victims, were allegedly held at gunpoint, beaten, pistol whipped, robbed, in order to leave, right? They said Arnold believed 2 of the victims were connected to a theft of more than $250,000 in property from an Airbnb that he was renting. But investigators later determined those victims were not involved in the theft. All right, so $250,000 worth of goods were pilfered from Terrion Arnold from his Airbnb. Now, nobody nobody wants to get robbed. Nobody wants to get robbed. Nobody wants to be robbed. Nobody, right? Like nobody wants that, right? When somebody takes something from you, you feel dirty, you feel angry because you feel like, man, you opened up your home, you opened up your life to a person, and all of a sudden they take something from you, and it's just not a good thing. Nobody wants to know what it feels like to be robbed. Nobody wants to be robbed. But this is a guy who has signed a 4-year, $14 million fully guaranteed contract in his NFL career, up for another contract if he would have played decently this season. And you basically throw that all away for, based on what you actually have, it's chump change. And then I'm pretty sure if they stole something of value up to $250,000, I'm pretty sure some of those things you have insured, so you can be able to get those things back. And even if you don't, like, is it really worth it? This is the problem, man, when it comes to the ego, right? When you have an ego, you got to keep that thing in check. You got to keep it in check because your ego will have you out of your position. It will have you out of your position. It'll have you out here looking foolish in these streets. It'll have you in jail. It'll have you losing everything. And this is a guy who had everything in front of him. He hasn't even been in the league that long. I want to say maybe like 3-4 years. Terrion Arnold has been in the league. So you still have your whole career ahead of you, and you throw it away because you probably felt some type of way that somebody had the audacity, the unmitigated gall to steal from you. And I get it. But at the same time, why are you trying to be Nino Brown, bro? Like, why are you trying to be Nino Brown? Right? Why are you trying to be James St. Patrick? Right? Well, who's that rapper that end up like trying to, you know what I'm saying, like trying to kidnap Gucci Mane? Well, who the rapper I'm talking about? Like, what are we doing here? Right? Like, why do we have to resort to this type of behavior in order for us to be able to get, you know what I'm saying, to feel like we accomplished something? You don't need these things in a grand scheme of things. Like, you know, like you don't need that. You don't need to throw away your career as much as you may think that you really, truly need those things back. But now it's like you have a I just don't understand it, man. I'm at a loss because this man, if he is convicted, he can actually get up to life in prison. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but at the same time, you're throwing away your career, man. You're throwing away your career and the people that's probably counting on you, your family, your teammates, and even yourself, man. And I just do not get it. To feel like empowered, like for what? Like you don't gain anything. Like, okay, you beat the guys up, right? You beat them up because they took your stuff. They're saying that these young teenage kids didn't do it, right? So you beat up the wrong guys according to the reports. So you did all that, still didn't get your stuff back. And you in a prison jumpsuit. For what? $250,000 when you're making $14 million. I'm not trying to count your pockets, but somebody need to make that make sense to me. You got to get your ego in check, ladies and gentlemen. Moral to the story. There are people that are going to make you mad in life. There are things that are going to happen in your life that are going to have you upset. But do not ever allow a person to get you out of your position where you can't even focus. You can't even think about the next move that you're going to make. And you are so filled with anger and frustration. When you get to that point, it's time to leave the situation, move on from the situation. Like he should have just followed the proper procedures, filed a police report, allow the police to be able to handle the situation. You know, like, but you'll live to fight another day. Meanwhile, now, like, you want to show everybody that you big and bad, and you know, you got the goons with you, you got your squad with you. But here's the thing: When you are a high-profile athlete, when you're a high-profile individual, like these prosecutors ain't looking for, Joe Nobody that you rolling with, right? They want the RICO. You know what I'm saying? Like they want to hit you with the RICO charge because you have the name. Just think about that, man. Just think about it. When it comes to like some of these situations, who do they always put? They always put the main person, the public figure's name first. And in low little captions at the bottom, and friends are charged, right? Because your name sells the story. Your name is the reason why people will click on it and be like, hey, you know what? Man, dang, this dude, he did what? All that's because you want to be Ghost. All that because you want to be Tommy Egan, right? You want to be Coltrane Wilder. For what, dude? Like, turn these shows off, bro. All right, turn off Raising Canaan. You know what I'm saying? Like turn these shows off, man, and realize that you're living in a real world where people like want to, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't want to see you thrive. And your ego will be your biggest downfall. I'm telling y'all, all these people out here want to be Nino Brown. All these young cats out here, I don't know, man, like flossing on social media, flexing, you know what I'm saying? Big wires of cash, you know what I'm saying? Semi-automatic handguns, you know what I'm saying? Like all these different things. Like, all right, bro. All right. Like, keep on doing it. And next thing you know, you're gonna be behind bars, wondering, sitting in a small jail cell, wondering to yourself, how did I get in this situation? Terrion Arnold should make better decisions, should have a better team around him. Thorough guys, thorough women around you to keep you on the up and up, to keep you focused. Where's the friend that would have said, hey, bro, I know you mad, man, but it ain't worth it, bro? Like where are those friends at? Like you have plenty of friends that say, oh, man, I'm with it. Like, but come on, man, what a friend at that's the level-headed one. Like, man, y'all crazy, man. Dude, you need to get ready for training camp. Man, you need to get ready, man. Detroit needs you. You up here around here staying kicking open doors and, like I said, trying to be Nino Brown. Like, come on, dude. What are we doing here? But I just hope that number one, I'm just glad that nobody was life was taken from them. I'm happy about that. It's unfortunate that people had to get beat up and all that kind of stuff over some nonsense, man. Like, but I get it. Nobody wants anybody to steal from them, but at the same time, think about your future. Think about your future, man. I mean, you had several. I'm talking about several opportunities to just say, man, it is what it is, bro. Like, dang, man, they got me, and moved on from it. Or follow the proper procedures to try to get your stuff back. Like when you sitting in a room, that could have been like, I ain't gonna do this. When y'all planted it out, that could have been like, nah, I don't want to do this. When y'all was out here getting the handguns, nah, dog, it ain't it. When y'all were probably getting the shiesties, nah, like you had so many opportunities to say no, and you didn't. Let's get TJ to 300 subscribers. Yeah, I appreciate that. Please, let's get to 300 subscribers, man, and beyond, as Buzz Lightyear would say. Says, I just know the Saints got better chances of beating the Lions in week 1 now. The Saints are trying to beat the Lions, and Terrion Arnold is trying to beat the case, I guess. Let's see. All that calls you want to be Ghost, Tommy, and Coltrane. Yeah, that's it, man. That's what you want to be. Says Pooh Shiesty. Yeah. Pooh Shiesty was the rapper that I was referring to, who tried to kidnap Gucci Mane. Tried to get out his contract. Like maybe Terrion Arnold read that story and said, you know what? I could do that. Like I don't know. Bad idea. Yeah, y'all ever seen Dave Chappelle they had a segment where it said when keeping it real goes wrong. This is one of those cases where keeping it real definitely went wrong. My nephew heard you say Buzz and went Buzz Lightyear crazy, lighthearted crazy. Well, yeah, man. Look, I recently saw the most recent Toy Story 5. I saw that last week. It's a good movie, man. Good movie. So I saw that with my wife and son. You know, when we went to Disney World on last week, man. So yeah, that was cool, man. Actually watching Toy Story at Disney World, pretty dope stuff right there. Said these YNs wilding out here. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know why. I just don't get it. 4 years he came in a year before Kool-Aid. Okay, he's going into his fourth season. All right, thank you for that. TJ, imagine NFL player kidnapping an owner trying to man, yeah, that would be something. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes a movie one day. Somebody decides to like create a movie like that. We'll have all the owners scared. You want how much? Okay, let's see. It's giving Pooh Shiesty. TJ, Olave doesn't strike you as a player who only tries to perform or inflates his number because it's a contract year, does he? He don't give me that vibe. Just had a quarterback throwing him, hospital balls. Yeah, I don't look at Chris Olave like that. I think Chris Olave would have did this and looked like this if he had a quarterback that can consistently throw him the ball throughout his career, you know? So I think that because Chris Olave actually has a quarterback that can get him the football, I think you're going to see some better numbers because I just think that the guy believes in himself. I think he has the talent, man. I just want, I would just like to see him, show it consistently, and I seen it towards the end of the season when the connection between him and Tyler Shuck started to like really gel. You started to see him started to get confidence. I think after that Carolina Panthers game when he played in Carolina, the first time he came back since he was knocked out cold on that field, he goes to Bank of America. He has that big 60-plus yard touchdown. And, I just think that kind of just built his confidence. It got his confidence back, right? I mean, you go back to the scene in which, like I said, you were knocked out, very scary scene. I was there in person. And, you go back there and you have a redemption game. And I just think after that, he kind of bounced back. And that was probably that moment where he was like, man, I can do this, right? I can do this. And, as a football player, man, you kind of need that. Any sport athlete in general. Like if something happens or you feel like you're not, you're not good enough or maybe you lost a step or something like that. I'm telling on myself right now. But it's like when you go out there and you have yourself a good game, a good performance, it's like, you know what, man, I can do this. I can do this. Says TJ, if Olave continues where he left off, do you think he could be a Pro Bowler this year? Lee, I mean, no disrespect to the Pro Bowl. Well, yes, it is. The Pro Bowl is so watered down. Like, I don't even look at it like it's actually meaningful anymore. Like, it used to be the Pro Bowl when you made the Pro Bowl, it meant something. Now it's just like anybody can do it. Like, look, I don't have anything against Shedeur Sanders, but when they put Shedeur Sanders in a Pro Bowl, that just tells you everything that you need to know about the Pro Bowl. That just tells you everything that you need to know about the Pro Bowl there. Now, not to say that the young man doesn't have talent, but definitely if we looking at it from the way the Pro Bowl used to be, his name shouldn't have been nowhere near the Super Bowl. I mean, excuse me, definitely not Super Bowl, but the Pro Bowl, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So when we talk about all pro, like that's where I feel like that means something. Like when he's a second team all pro, that means something. That means something. That means that like you're the creme de la creme, right? I mean, the Associated Press, people that follow the league and what I'm saying, they take it serious. They're not just gonna give it to you, right? when you become an all-pro, I feel like that means way more to me these days than somebody going to the Pro Bowl. Like, what are you going to play? Flag football? You know what I'm saying? What, pie toss? You know what I'm saying? Y'all going to play ring toss? Like, what are we doing at the Pro Bowl? Like, seriously. I mean, we got a little snapping competition where they just be trying to snap and knock things off, like off a long snap. Like, man, y'all might well look. I don't know if y'all remember this show back in the day. I'm telling my age right now. They used to have a show on Nickelodeon called Wild and Crazy Kids, a Double Dare, Slime Time Live. You know, like they had these kids and they be going through all these different events, and you know, like they trying to go through all these different obstacle courses and stuff like that. They might fall in some slime. They might fall into some confetti. They might take a pie to the face. That's what I look at it. That's what I look at. Think of, I should say, when I see the Pro Bowl. You just remind me of an episode of Double Dare, Wild and Crazy Kids, Legends of the Hidden Temple, like back in the day when those Nickelodeon game shows used to be on my TV. Right? I just don't respect the Pro Bowl like I once did. It just don't slap the way it once did. You know what I'm saying? Money brings out the good or bad out of you. Yeah, that's true, man. That's true. You find out who people are when they start getting that bread. TJ, why don't we hold coaches' feet to the fire for using players incorrectly in the national media? I don't know. Because it's too much. It's too much attention on the organization. Because then you would have to ask the question, like, okay, why did the organization hire a bad coach? Right? And like I said, man, these organizations, they got a lot of power. They got a lot of stroke. And people want that access. And they want to be able to be close to these organizations. And they want the skinny, right? They want the lowdown. And they're not going to lose that because, you know, they want to, you know, tell you the real deal, you know. So they're not going to do that. Unless, you know, like you like a mainstream market or something like that, where it just seems like that's just the wild, wild west. No one wants to see a popularity contest. I mean, look, ain't nothing wrong with a popularity contest when it's warranted, you know, like, but when we're just basically just putting people in there for the simple fact of, you know, who they are versus who they are and what they're actually doing on the field, that's a problem. Take a few more and then we go ahead and get up out of here. It says Pro Bowl is worse than an all-star game these days. Yeah. The only all-star game that honestly really means something is baseball. Because, you know, like there are certain incentives, you know, for the American League and the National League to play, right? I believe like home field advantage or something like that is involved. So like the game means something, right? So when those guys go out there, you know what I'm saying, they playing on behalf of the National or American League, and you know, like, you know, by them winning, they're actually bringing something to their actual league. If their team is good enough, then guess what? You know, like you can find yourself in a really good situation in a big time game. TJ, I think we see a resurgence from AK this year. I think so too, because you're not running him into the ground, and you have somebody that's a change of pace, a complimentary guy like Travis Etienne. But I want to say thank you all for checking out this episode of the Straight Up TJ Podcast. Really do appreciate it. Much love to each and every one of you. I ask that you hit the subscribe button. Help the channel to grow. You can follow me on X at TJAY Jones 8. Once again, please, pretty please, subscribe to the Sleeper Saints podcast. It's a weekly podcast that we do on that channel. Also, Saints Shorts, talking about the New Orleans Saints. We're doing that from now and, you know, throughout the season. And I don't want you to miss any of the content. We're very Saints heavy on that page. I know, you know, Straight Up TJ, we talk about other topics on top of like talking about Saints as well. And I appreciate everybody for stopping by, but we definitely talk about different topics pertaining to the Saints and, you know, bring an interesting perspective. Also, if you want to email me your questions, you can, you know, follow me on X at TJAY Jones 8 or stateofthesaints@gmail.com. We have the Who That Nation mailbag. Read questions from the Who That Nation every episode. So if you got questions about the New Orleans Saints, make sure you email me, send me those DMs with your questions, and you might see it on the show. All right. Appreciate the time. And until next time, I'll see you down the road.
DJ, yeah. Straight up, let's go. Welcome to Straight Up TJAY. Tap in, sit back, press replay. Been locked in with the Saints on a weekday. Now we talking every sport, every big play. Years on the grind, now we level up the view. From the dome to the world, get a better look at you. No script.